Evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are we all doing today? It's Sunday, the 26th of October, 2025. Hope you're well. Hope you're having a great week. Hope you've had a great weekend. Certainly been a good one here in Littlehampton on the south coast of the UK. We've had some really, really lovely weather this weekend. It's been cold. Don't get me wrong. It has been cold, but pleasant at the same time. Now, tonight I'm asking the question, what are you overwintering this year? Now, we've been talking a lot about what we're going to be growing through the winter over the last few weeks. But this week, I really want to find out what you are growing over winter this year. So for me, it's going to be things that we've already got sown: broad beans, we've got peas, we've got onions. We're even starting off our sweet peppers and chilies in the next few weeks as well. Things like that we are going to overwinter. So we're going to get into that in just a moment. First of all, who have we got out there? Adrian, with his name change, is out there. Hello to you. Ballysloon is there saying good evening, everyone. It's been a wet day here in Belfast. Good evening to you. And Lottie Chef, aka Nathan, is good evening all. Good evening to you. Turbo Stream saying good evening, Veg Podcast is in the no daylight till the end of March. Indeed. Scott is there saying good evening all. Sadly only here for the first half as Dad taxis duties again. You're all doing that a lot lately, aren't you? I hope your children appreciate the sacrifice that you make each week. In the dark even. Hargrave Gas, evening everyone. It is dark, isn't it? Hope you've all had a great week indeed. Kate is there saying good evening, Veg Army. Good evening to you. Stuart is there. Evening, Richard and Veg Army. Hope everyone is well. I've been doing a little bit in the garden this weekend. What have you been doing? What have you been doing? Anna Jones, evening gardeners. Digwell, Ishesh beat Daka Lrala Todolia. Translation, I say, fellows, how are we all doing this evening? Have you noticed that it's a bit dark for the start of the show tonight? What language was that in? Jenny's there. Hello, everyone. Hope you are well. We had a good frost this morning. No overwintering here as I'm changing things around in the garden this year. And Stuart says, I'm overwintering chilies, broad beans, Swiss chard, and hopefully onions. So let's get into it. Now, for me, I always want to grow things over winter. I'm a firm believer that our beds should not be empty over winter. And I want to grow as much food as I possibly can. So I don't want to lose the 3 months of potential growing. However, it is cold. It is going to be darker, shorter days. There's probably going to be strong winds, lots of rain, which are going to give all our plants a really hard time. And certainly things like tomatoes and peppers and sweet peppers. Thank you. Sweet peppers and chilies are going to struggle if they are outside. But one of the things that I always try and grow, if I cannot grow food, is green manures. I find some of the green manures, winter tares, field beans, things like that, actually do grow quite well over winter. And the good thing about green manures is they're feeding the soil, they're benefiting the soil one way or the other, but they're also benefiting the crops that come after. So yeah, my general rule is if I can't grow food, I will grow green manures. But what else am I growing? Broad beans. They're a good one, I think, to overwinter. Every year I will grow broad beans, start them off from seed and grow them inside. Start them off in my greenhouse, get them slowly hardened off, and I then plant them out. And I find they actually do quite well outside. I very rarely have troubles when I grow my broad beans over winter, unless it's exceptionally cold. But the real thing here, the real reason I grow broad beans over winter is the fact that they tend to get fewer problems come spring. We get less black fly, we get decent broad beans out of them, and we get them that little bit earlier. And it's the same with peas. Certain varieties of peas, Meteor is a good example. They can be sown over winter, grow over winter, and provide us with some early peas next year as well. So 2 of the things that I will be overwintering. Chilies. something else. I start my chilies off quite early compared to most people. Many people start January. I find that I start my chilies off maybe November. We'll get some growing, but they do need to be indoors. That being said, I've got some chilies that I've grown this year that are in pots. And I've really given them a good haircut, really cut them down quite significantly in order to overwinter them and get an early start in the year as well. So they're just three of the plants that I can think that I'm talking about so far, that I am overwintering. So what about you? What plants, if any, are you overwintering? Stuart Jackson, I may have already read this one. I am overwintering chilies, broad beans, Swiss chard, and hopefully onions. Actually, that's a very good thing. Swiss chard and onions. I haven't mentioned those, but we'll get into those in just a moment. Chili Kate says, good evening, everyone. It has been a great weekend for a few visits to the allotment. Indeed, it has. I'm sure the weather's been, where you are, has been fairly similar to what it's been here. It has been lovely. It really has been lovely to get outside, get the sun on your back, and enjoy the autumn air. Nicola is there. Has everybody changed their names or something? There's something different going on. Evening, Richard and all. So dark, I don't like it. It is dark. It is dark. Digwell says, "Ishi beat dark." It's Ishi beat dark li to dire. It's a bit darker earlier today. Oh, it feels late though, doesn't it? It does feel late. Over on Instagram, Deb's Benny has joined, but it does feel late. It does feel late. Ballycinian says probably not really overwintering. Well, probably not really overwintering, but I replanted my best 6 onions I grew last year to grow over winter to collect seed. In fact, that's the key, isn't it? Some people will the exhibition growers, they will exhibit their onions, they will replant them in order to try and get that seed, that flower spike, so that they can get seed from it, because onions are biennial. They will pop their flowers out in their second year, and then you get seed from it, which you want to save. Stuart says, I will also be growing any seeds that come from the supporters club seeds, both at school and home. Of course, anybody who knows, I run a supporters club in which you get 6 packets of seeds each month for just £5 a month, along with a few other things. Details on that, the veggroundpodcast.co.uk. Turbo Extreme says, this winter I will mainly be overwintering onions and garlic, even though I don't eat garlic. I like that, though. I'm glad that you're trying to branch out and try other things, because I'm a firm believer in experimenting and trying other things. You may not eat garlic, but you might enjoy growing it, and you might suddenly find that you like eating it, or you will eat it when you've grown it, because I think it takes on a totally different element. In the beds today, I planted my garlic and elephant garlic. Good man, good man. We do like elephant garlic here as well. Elephant garlic, it's more like a leek, but you get this huge bowl at the bottom that looks like it is garlic, but it's actually more closely related to leek. It's really, really tasty. Really is a good one to grow. I grow it every year, and I really enjoy growing it. Scott says, I will be doing an elephant garlic, but haven't got it in yet. There's still time. There is still time to get it in. Andrew says, evening, Richard and the Veg Army. We have had a day of heavy rain after weeks of sunshine. It's coming. The rain is coming. Anna Jones says, pots of herbs are all I have to overwinter. My veggie beds are usually far too wet in winter, so will be empty till the spring. Now, this is again actually one of the good points. I often talk about while I'm overwintering, but yeah, I'm on a clay soil. My allotment particularly can get a little bit wet, which is why I tend to go for these raised beds. But I'm lucky because we have been able to do that. We have got free draining soil with all the extra compost, the mulch that we've added over the years, built up those soil levels, built up this sort of network, this drainage that allows the moisture to run out, which enables me to overwinter a lot of our plants. However, I am on the south coast, so I am quite lucky in that I do have some more favourable conditions, and than many of you. I don't know. Is there anybody who doesn't bother growing anything over the winter? Turbo Stream says, I have chard that survived the summer, so add that to the list, and a few parsnips and stray Brussels sprouts. Indeed, winter veggies. YouTube have changed to using handles. Yeah, I'm noticing that. It's throwing me completely. Scott says, I will also be doing broad beans. The past 3 years they have failed, but this year it worked and I had a huge crop. I hear a lot of people suffer with failing broad beans when overwintering. I've never had a problem. I've always found it really, really easy to overwinter them. It may be because it is quite mild here, but that's easy. If you're going to get some cold weather, keep those fleeces to hand. I think that's the same with anything that we overwinter. Keep those fleeces to hand. Keep an eye on the weather. And if you're going to get some cold weather, run out with those fleeces and protect your plants as best as you can. You normally find January, February is when it's the coldest, when the worst of the weather comes. November, December, we might get snow in December, but generally it's pretty okay. Turbo Stream says it's been mainly raining this week and weekend, so no gardening got done. No rain here until this evening. Digwell says, never had much success in overwintering chilies. I love to see how you do it. I spoke about it on the podcast, but I keep getting asked to make videos, and I do need to make some more videos, so perhaps I could film it. The trouble is I don't like the story not having an ending at the time of filming, if that makes sense. So if I was to film how I overwinter chilies, I would have to show you next year. I've just formulated a plan. It might be a long-term thing. Right, so Turbo Stream says, when I eat garlic, I seem to stink of garlic for days afterwards. Beats BO, I suppose. I love garlic. I really do love garlic. Buddy Soon says, we don't have shows, but I find collecting seeds that grew well in my soil conditions do better than bought seeds most times. Funny enough, I'm thinking more and more about saving my own seed from various crops that have grown on my allotment or my kitchen garden for that very reason, because I do believe it does make things better. Rebecca has joined and saying, good evening, Rebecca. How are you? Tonight we're talking about what are you growing over winter? What are you overwintering this year? Let us know in the comments. Scott says, what green manures can we overwinter? Good question. Very good question. Quite a few. So winter tears are a good one that I sent out in this CPAC last month. You could still get them in if you're quick. Winter tears, but definitely are a good one. There's some autumn winter mixes they can go in. Quite often it involves a bit of mustard and other crops like that. So I think really you're leaning towards the mustard crops. There is a field beans, a legume basically, the type of bean. You rake those in, they produce these nitrogen fixing nodules on the roots. They fix nitrogen in the soil. Be careful, of course, not to allow them to flower, because that uses up the nitrogen. I've got a green manure that I got from my supplier that is specifically designed to go in for the beds where potatoes are going to grow, and I find those do quite well over winter. And they actually fumigate the soil to get rid of any eelworms and stuff to produce good potatoes next year. And I've got one for sweet corn as well I'm going to try this year as well. So a few options there, quite a few options indeed. Sweet or two, since Turbo Stream. Digwell says, garlic, still time to plant, 4 or 5 months. In fact, spring planted tastes better. Some say no proof here. I don't know. Maybe that'll be a test we have to do if there is a difference in taste. I have been thinking a lot about all these different scenarios and things to test that we could be doing. Kate says, chilies and broad beans for me. Excellent. And Adrian says, several other channels have been changed. You may be able to change back in settings. I'll have to look into that, because it's It's odd. Turbo Stream says, you live on the south coast, Richard. Not worth it here. Broad beans is just the way it is. So I may live on the south coast, but you got to remember, it depends. Being on the south coast, I get the same conditions as, say, London, but also if you track it up, it's also the eastern side of the country. So it is pretty mild here, but broad beans, people do grow them all over the country. Has anybody else had success overwintering broad beans? Put your hands up if you have had success. Andrew says, I won't be planting any overwinter stuff. I'm waiting for my neighbour to plough our garden. It's very compact and needs improvement. Yeah. This is one of the things, when you've got plants that are in the ground over winter, it does restrict what you can do in that soil. And this is why I find myself leaning towards, as we're going more into polyculture. I've been out in the garden this weekend, and as I'm trying to get more and more mixed planting going on, as space comes available, I'm trying to fill it up with plants. But then I'm realizing it's a bit of a struggle to get things like compost in. So what I'm doing now, space comes available, compost goes in, then I plant into that, and it seems to be working quite well. But it is a consideration that we have to do. Digwell says, in my honest opinion, broad beans are overwinter are a waste of time, a fraction of the yield, use up soil energy for broad beans only a week or two earlier than those sown in spring. Again, I find it works quite well. We have to do an experiment on that, actually. Jenny, if you can write a note, broad bean experiment, that would be great. Anna Jones says, I used to start sweet peas in autumn, but for me, they always do better from a spring sowing. Yeah, that could be. This is something we probably should have a look at, isn't it? Do overwintered broad beans do better than spring beans? And the same with peas and sweet peas. I don't sow many sweet peas, but it's certainly a thought that we should be looking at, or something to consider. How can we compare them? Nicholas says, when I disturbed the soil with redoing the veg beds, I had some self-sown kale plants, so have them in the ground. Excellent. Kale, another good plant for overwintering, actually. Kale, it tastes better, in my opinion, after it has had a bit of a frost. We had, I know somebody's not going to like that K word, but we've harvested some kale this weekend, and it was absolutely beautiful. Turbo Stream says, broad beans do well sown in early March here, though. Interesting, isn't it? Interesting. I'm trying to think of how I could conduct this experiment and see what works. Beddoes has joined. Hiya, everyone. I'm growing all over winter. All I'm growing over winter is older and grumpier. Excellent. Thumbs up, everyone, indeed. Give us a thumbs up if you are enjoying this show. Stu Jackson says, I still have my garlic to put in this week. Hopefully we will get some cold weather to help them split this year. Yeah, it really depends how early you put them in, but I think most of the time, if you're October, November, well, to be honest, I've done it as late as April, but it's still split. It's when it goes in May onwards that it doesn't really get anything. Jenny says, we can get down to -12 on thick clay, so that can be very wet. Plus, we get a lot of field runoff. The wind can rip through our garden and it comes down the hill off the field. No greenhouse, etc. So I need to overwinter some tropical plants, so the little protection I have is spoken for. I have grown chard, etc., but it's not great. So this is actually something that Victorian gardeners also used to do and were well aware of, and that's why they would create microclimates. This is why you would get walled gardens in the Victorian gardeners, but also those little those little hedges that they had around their beds as well. That was all about trying to create the microclimate to bring the temperature up of the vegetable gardens a couple of degrees warmer. And this is what I've realized in my kitchen garden. So my kitchen garden is generally a bit easier to overwinter things than compared to my allotment. And I was spending some time trying to figure out what's going on. What is the difference? And I realized it's because I've got fences all the way around my garden, which just shelter off some of that wind. So it's actually a few degrees warmer than my allotment, the allotment being quite open. So Interesting, I thought that was, and it kind of reminded me, as I said, of why the Victorian gardeners had these walled gardens. It's all about improving that microclimate. Will garlic bulbs split into cloves if planted in spring? Yes, they can. So they basically need um, a period where they are where they are chilled, and the actual thing is, it's something like a week below 10 degrees C. So yes, they can still split. Or there's a cheat: you can stick it in the fridge for a week and then plant it um, as an experiment to see what would do. Stuart says beans at home. Scott's puts his hands up as well with the question I asked earlier. What we got? Turbo Stream says, I'm still eating broad beans from 2024, so I'll take a year out from growing them in 2025. I might plant 1 or 2 seeds, but no more. Absolutely, absolutely. Nicholas says, I did a couple of years ago. Broads did okay. Turbo Stream says, even field beans have perished over winter here. Yeah. I mean, I'm surprised at that because even farmers use field beans. So, and farmers are generally quite open farm fields. So, I'm quite surprised that they were dying there. But what about your neighbours? Are they having the same trouble? Digwell says, brilliant. Love to see the results. Autumn versus spring sown. You've given me ideas. You're giving me ideas. You know what I'm like with videos, but I want to do more of these sort of investigative journalism, as it's called. My happy moments. I haven't even got to that yet. Something has eaten totally my 2 new varieties of kale. You're not meant to be happy about that, but I guess you are. I guess you are. Toby Street says, my plot neighbour plants his broad beans first week of March, works every year without fail. Interesting. And I'm guessing you have a fridge. Stuart Jackson, I'm growing salad crops in a veggie pod and greenhouse this winter, plus microgreens help with my lunchbox. No, actually, this is a good point. The veggie pod. So the veggie pod, those that don't know, it's a raised bed that's got this protective cover, this environment cover. And what I find that, again, I've got 3 of those in my garden, and they do actually keep things warm. And I find that I'm actually able to grow quite a few herbs, things like coriander, parsley, in those over winter quite successfully. So that even for Christmas Day, we're going out and harvesting some fresh parsley for our Christmas dinner. So, and it's the same with salads as well, things like lettuce and other salad crops. I find the veggie pod is great for growing salads at the best of times, but added to over the winter, we just get an extra load of crops out of them as well. And many people don't really think of, many people don't really think of growing lettuce over winter, but trust me, it's worth it. Really is worth it. Jenny says, bean experiment would be great if we can get people from different regions to grow into the same conditions. Maybe 6 over winter, 6 cell sown in spring, and 6 direct sown. All send their results. Anybody else wants to take part, we will, but let's not try and make it too complicated. Tab Extreme says, mission, compare broad beans between your home garden and your allotment. I can't do that in a week, can I? Jenny says, I would love a walled garden, wouldn't we all? But that's what fences are. Fences are a walled garden. This is how I've suddenly sort of looked at it. Maybe not look as attractive, but they are creating a walled garden. Digwell says, same here. My freezer has so many spring sown broad beans from last year. Yeah. And Stuart says, I didn't know you could put them in the fridge until tonight. There you go. You learn something every show. Nicholas says, Jenny rats would eat direct broad bean seed sown and not pre-started. But you never know. They probably would, but it depends if you've got rats. I'm guessing where you are, you probably do in your large farm. Occasionally get rats here, so it's not so much of a problem for me, but All depends, doesn't it? I don't really like broad beans, Digwell, but sow them every year. You can still do the mission and report back next year. Indeed, indeed. Digwell says, in my honest opinion, winter lettuce is a bit tough compared to normal lettuce. That I also agree with. It is a bit tougher than normal lettuce or lettuce we might eat throughout the summer. But that doesn't mean it's not worth growing. I enjoy growing it. I pick it when it's young. I treat it. I tend to do more sort of cut and come again salad leaves over winter, and then yeah, the leaves are a bit tougher. But it's winter, isn't it? You expect things to be tougher. When we're eating things, it's going to be a bit tougher. Well, I think so anyway. Scott says, if I sow chilies now, soon, and overwinter them under lights, how many hours of light should I give them? And will less light slow growth? So that is a very good question about chilies. How much light to give them? Really, you want about 16 hours of light a day. And it needs to be good, strong light. So a great example is you probably see this behind here every week, my hydroponics. That's had his tomato plant growing in it nearly a year now, kind of leaving it as a bit of an experiment. That's on for 16 hours a day. Is it 16? Yeah, 16 hours a day, off for 8. LED, they really don't use much in a way of lights these days. But 16 hours is what you're looking for. The trouble is when you put them out in a greenhouse where they don't have lights, they may sulk a bit with the sudden reduction. That's why I tend to try and do that in about April, May time when they can cope. I'd say LED lights are pretty cheap these days to buy. They're getting cheaper all the time. Soak the seeds in paraffin, says Digger about the broad bean seeds, is what people used to do. Soak the seeds in paraffin and see, and in order to deter vermin. Term Extreme, does lettuce undergrow lights count as overwintering? If so, add lettuce. Indeed, it does. It's whatever you're growing over winter. Whatever you're really going to harvest or grow over winter is what I want to know. So yeah, I'm going to. You can count lettuce as well. Jenny says, I've just ripped one fence out. Wildlife gateway. Now you can still have a wildlife gateway with a fence, but yeah, it's all about, as I said, when it comes to winter growing. This is why I say the Victorian gardeners knew it. They would create these microclimates, which is why they had walled gardens. It's why they had these hedges that would transport things. If you've ever seen a pineapple house as well, which is always something I find absolutely fascinating, pineapple house was where they would grow pineapples, and it's basically a type of cold frame, I guess you could say, but on a much larger scale. But it would have a well all the way around this pineapple house. And in that well, they would fill it up with all the horse manure and shavings out of the horse bed and all that stuff, basically composting. And that compost would get so hot, it would actually heat up through the bricks and heat up that pineapple house in order to keep the pineapples growing over winter. This is something I think, as we're, I think many of us who have greenhouses, and I'm talking about this on the podcast tomorrow, we are starting to think more about how we can heat our greenhouses and what we can do to heat our greenhouses. And of the old-fashioned ways, the use of horse manure is a cheap way of doing it because there's no real energy involved except in the energy that is created with horse manure is just biodegrading and creating heat. And Digwell says, used to do. I know many who still do it with no losses. Oh, I thought I was going on. I thought he was going to talk about. I'll come back to that in a second. Thought he was going to talk about the horse manure method, but I'd love to try and see if we can recreate that way of heating a greenhouse using horse manure. Anyway, that's getting off topic a bit. So I mentioned about broad beans being soaked and peas being soaked in paraffin that people used to do. And Digwell knows many who still do it with no losses. The paraffin has no impact on the grown beans. Not for me, as I have no rodents per se. Exactly. exactly. It's whatever works for whoever is involved. Andrew says, "Have you seen the building in Scotland shaped like a pineapple? It's called the Dunmore Pineapple, and you can be rent to stay, and it can be rented to stay." And I've not seen it myself. I've not even heard of it until tonight. So, love to find out more about that. But I mean, I have been to Scotland, and I've been to my father-in-law's place, which was in Stranraer, Port Patrick area, which is basically across the sea from Belfast. And they had a tropical garden there, all out in the open, tropical, all about creating that microclimate that makes it suitable for growing plants, just keeping it that warmer. We're not just talking about, when I say tropical plants, we're not talking about edible plants there. There was bananas, there was plants from South Africa and places like that that were growing quite happily on this Scottish garden. It was absolutely amazing. Jenny says, "I have rodents, but birds of prey keep them in check." Exactly right. Exactly right. That's what we want. Scott says, "I recently put lamb's leaf corn salad on a menu and was shocked by the price. £5 for 125 grams. That's amazing, because that's actually a a plant that I grow quite often over winter, lamb's lettuce or corn salad. Really, really hardy, really good to grow over winter. Really, really hardy, really can take a good beating. Um, and provide some really tasty salad crops again. Um, Absolutely delicious. And again, really good for overwintering. Anna Jones, Logan Gardens. That's it, Logan Gardens. The very, very one I'm thinking of. Absolutely stunning there, Logan Gardens. I was really, really impressed with the place. Turbo Stream says West Scotland gets warm from the Gulf Stream, so despite the northerly location, is mild in winter. Exactly, but it's also it just goes to show that it's not necessarily about how north you are; it's about your local environment. So this has been a really interesting discussion. Has anybody, or is anybody growing anything over winter that we haven't mentioned? Or rather, have you got any plants that you are going to need to protect from the cold this year? And how are you doing it? I'm thinking plants like bananas. So I used to grow bananas. I used to grow them in pots, if I'm honest with you. I don't grow them anymore. But they were but basically because I never got them to produce bananas, so I don't bother. But I might get another banana tree one day. But I used to have to protect them every winter by putting like this, the canes around it, and then putting some fleece around it to protect it from the cold. And it worked. We got it through the winter most years. Anybody doing anything like that with any of their plants that they feel needs protecting a little bit more? Let us know. Let us know. Chili Cake says to Scott, try Sainsbury's for lamb's lettuce. And Time Extreme says, as far as we are central, we get colder winters than you would imagine. I can imagine. I can imagine. And Nicola says, I found lamb's lettuce quite bitter when grown once. Never bothered again. It can be a bit bitter, but I think it also depends on how harsh it's been grown. I quite like it. I do quite like it, but I do like bitter food, so not surprising. Jenny says, my young bananas are indoors, large ones outside, and will be wrapped up with a parasol cover over to keep them dry. Yeah, they do need keeping dry. It's not just about keeping them warm, keeping them dry. Love bananas. When I was in the Caribbean in St. Lucia, I went to a banana plantation and was absolutely fascinated, as you can imagine, with hearing how they grow bananas. Really good, really good, really good. If you are ever in the area in the Caribbean, recommend going and visit a banana plantation and learning how they grow them. Turbo Stream says, I've some lamb's lettuce self-sown in my allotment on the new grass paths. Indeed, indeed. Now, this feels like a good moment, actually, to cut away to one of our videos. So let's do the cook along. This seems like a good opportunity for the cook along.
Hey! Come and cook with me. Make some food with me. Come on, everybody. We're gonna make some food. Let's go.
Okay, so for this week's recipe, you want me to make pumpkin bread, and in here I have got a small pumpkin. I've cut away all the sides, the skin, the seeds, and I've grated up the meat, given about 250 grams of pumpkin flesh, into which we're going to add 1 large egg beaten, some butter. There will be, the recipe for this will be on our website if you are interested in. I've had to sort of stick it in the oven to soften a bit because it's quite cold here. And we've also got some honey, which again I've had to do the same with, just to try and soften it up a little to get it going. We're going to give this a good mix. I hope that batter melts a bit more as we mix it. The honey's certainly mixed up well. By the way, that's Roxy, you can possibly hear in the background whining. She's in a bit of a whiny mood at the moment, and I'm not quite sure why. Anyway, that's mixing up quite nicely. So in goes some lovely soft brown sugar and some self-raising flour. And it should hopefully be quite an easy bread recipe to make. I don't think it's the type of bread you would have on your toast. I'll break that up a bit more, that butter. Okay, well I think that is more or less quite well mixed. So in comes my loaf tin, which I've applied a nice bit of oil. I'm just going to make sure the oil is all over the place well. And we're going to spoon in this mixture. Make sure I get that on camera, of course, for you guys. We'll just push it all the way down. Okay, so just going to sprinkle over some demerara sugar on top. Oh, I've got that a bit too thick. And that's going to go in the oven, gas mark 4, already preheated, for about an hour. We'll come back at once it's cooked and see quite what it looks like. Okay, well it's just came out of the oven. I tried to put it on the rack and it completely collapsed in on itself. Gonna leave it to cool, but we'll see what it tastes like back in the studio. But I'm gonna say this is gonna get a low score because it doesn't look very nice at all. Back to the studio. Indeed, so here we have, as you can see, it's a little bit overcooked just there, but the rest of it isn't too bad. It's just the way it collapsed as it came out of the oven. It's more like a cake. I should have let it cool down for a bit before I tried getting it out of the tin, but I was being a bit impatient. And anyway, let's see what it tastes like. That's nice. That is really nice, actually. Nice. I'm not really getting any taste. Actually, I am. A little bit of taste of pumpkin. Nice little hint of honey as well. Yeah, not bad. Not bad. Taste-wise, going to give that a 9 out of 10. But presentation is a 1 out of 10. So make of that what you will. Back to the comments. Jenny says, banana from seed are easy and fun. I've tried growing from seed, but didn't have much luck. I might have to give that another try. Probably a good one to grow or try doing over winter. Scott says, Sainsbury's, much cheaper, but needed lots and have to use my veg supplier, in reply to using Sainsbury's for lamb, lamb's lettuce. Benno says, love banana milkshakes in St. Lucia. Might have been a 50% white rum they used. Yeah, indeed. They do like their rum. Digwell says, prefer rum punch myself. Oh, lovely. Rum punch. Lovely. Chili Kate says, cook along parsnip soup. That is in the thing for next week. Chili Kate says, lots of cook along ideas, please. Chili Fear has had 3 in a row. Yeah, we do want more cook along ideas, suggestions, anything you can challenge or want to know if I can cook. Hit it out in the hashtag cook along, and you never know. It all goes in the drawer. Chili Phil has had 3 weeks running. Don't want him to have a 4th, do we? Well, you might want to actually, but I don't care. I go with whatever wins the draw. Jenny says, if anyone wants to try banana for the leaf, serving plate or cooking, Moussa Boujou is the one that can be easily overwintered in the UK. Yeah, I used to have that one and a red one. It was absolutely lovely. Good plant. It was a good plant. It just didn't produce the edible element that everything in my garden has to do. Digwell says, all veggie breads, loaves are more like a cake. Yeah, definitely more like a cake. It's lovely. Tastes great. It's just the fact that it fell apart so easily. Another vote there for parsnip soup. Now, I was looking at my parsnips, another one that we are growing here at the Veg Grower Podcast, looking at my parsnips, and they are a little bit small at the moment. I don't know what your parsnips are like, but mine are a little bit small. I have noticed in recent weather when obviously we have months and months and months of dry weather, but in recent months where the weather has started to get quite moist again, the parsnips have improved and started to really start to put on some girth. But it's going to be a struggle. I always think as well, and I think there's some science behind this, parsnips taste best after they have had a frost, once they've had a good freezing, because they're just more sweeter, a bit like Brussels sprouts and many other, and kale. They just need a bit of a frost to taste their best. Excuse me, in my opinion. But I'm happy to go with parsnip soup if that wins. Scott has said maple and pecan toffee apples. I've never tried making toffee apples before, so that seems like a good one. We'll see what happens. Jenny says, my friend cooks fish in banana leaf all wrapped up. It looks nice. Oh, yeah, I had that in St. Lucia. It's an interesting way, isn't it? Interesting way of cooking. You make me think I should get a banana tree again. Chili Cat says, mine look great. Just cut up the first one for dinner. I couldn't wait any longer. What was that? What was that? Have I missed something? Sorry, Chili. I'm probably forgotten what you said. Nicholas says, not had the rain this year, Richard. No, it has been a dry year up until a few weeks ago. It has been a few weeks since we've had any, or it has been a very, very dry year this year. And this last few weeks when the rain has came in, the parsnips and the carrots as well have really started putting on some girth. Just hoping that it's enough that we're going to get some decent parsnips for our Christmas dinner, because, you know, we're all looking towards that Christmas dinner. Digwell says, diggy dishes up, changed ID to mess you up. Parsnips need freezing? No, it would need to be well cold to get down to the roots, in my honest opinion. There's something that does go on. They do need a bit of a frost. It's something to do with the starch and the sugars, from what I understand. They just taste, in my opinion, better after, well, science says it as well. They taste sweeter. Oh, Chili is just cutting up her parsnips. That's what I kind of lost out on. With you now, with you. I mean, as I said, there's nothing wrong with harvesting them now at all. I always wait until after the first frost before I harvest my parsnips. Over on Instagram, Grandad Fixit has joined. Welcome along. We're talking about what are you overwintering this year? What plants are you overwintering this year? Scott says recipe on the website for them easy recipe. I want the this thing I'm eating right here. Really easy. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Excuse me. Black peas cooked for bonfire night. True Lancashire food. We had our fireworks night last night in our town. Obviously, I don't go to it because I don't like fireworks, and we could still hear them. Poor dog. Lucky she was asleep through it, but she didn't like it, which normally don't like it. But it is there. It is there. Chili field cook along parsnip and beetroot gratin. Think like potato dauphinoise, but with parsnips and beetroot. Interesting. And Scott says to Beddoes, mushy peas, pot pie, and mint sauce in Yorkshire, and parking. What is parking? I've heard this a lot. I've never actually asked what parking is. I hear a lot about it, but I've never actually asked a question. Digger says, agree some root veg like to be frozen, not spuds and not carrots. Yeah, I agree with that. I do agree with that. No recipe for the toffee apples on the website. I did it a few years ago, I think. Okay. I can't remember. I may have done. I'm sure I would have put it on the website if you did. Maybe it's lost in the annals of time. But I'll dig it out if you haven't, because I've kept every single recipe you've ever sent me anyway. So, yeah. I still reckon egg on toast one week for the cook-along. Hashtag cook-along with egg on toast. It could be yours. We've got 4 entries for the cook-along, but only 1 so far for the mission. So, hashtag cook-along, hashtag mission. Now, I'm going to have a bit of a rant now. Time for my rant of the week. I'm not going to play the music because I'm not quite happy with the music. But rant of the week. Rant of the week is, why don't people respect other people's allotment boundaries? Now, my allotment and all our allotments on our site are quite open. Anybody can easily walk in and walk out. I think most allotments are like that. But I always think it is rude to walk into somebody's allotment. I just think it is rude to do that. I would not dream of walking onto anybody else's allotment. We actually have rules on that in place so that people are not technically allowed to walk onto others' allotment. But it does happen. I know it happens because I catch them on my wildlife camera. We see people going on our allotment and just being nosy, having a look around, which isn't really a problem with being nosy. I just think it is rude. I've been reading on some Facebook pages about a certain allotment brand who have a chain of allotments around the country. They've got one near us, and they are getting funny about people using the public footpath that runs right through their field. And they're trying to tell people they can't use it, even though it was there long before it. And their argument is that if they're walking on that footpath, they can then stray off the footpath and walk onto people's plots, which is a viable role. Don't get me wrong. It is annoying when people walk on your allotment, but I think it is rude to do so. What do you think? Do you think it's polite, or do you think I'm in the wrong? Let me know. Digwell says parking is when you go to a place and need to leave the car in a place. Parking fees apply. I don't think that's edible though. My mission is impossible. Hashtag mission impossible. Digwell says, if you like egg dishes, you know where to look. Yeah, I've got these habanero chilies that I've harvested this week, and I've got to do something with. I'm looking at making a nice habanero chili sauce out of them. Just throwing out another option out there if you want to hashtag cook along. Chili Cake says, because I have grass paths, people sometimes get confused which are the main paths. Yeah, I can sort of understand that. But yeah, I can sort of understand that. But I think on mine, it's quite clear it's a site, it's a little path. Turbo Extreme says, only walk on someone's allotment if they are present on it. Otherwise, I look from the communal paths. Again, I do the same. If I'm invited on somebody's allotment, that's the only time I will walk on their allotment. Again, I don't disagree there. I think it is just a case of being polite, respecting boundaries. But why do some people not respect other people's boundaries? Why are we so brilliant, I guess, is the real question. Digwell says, an ancient footpath right does not give you permission to stray. Absolutely right there, Digwell. Absolutely right. But this allotment chain is basically trying to stop people from using the footpath, which I disagree with at all. Ancient footpath. I agree they should not stray off the footpath. Same as walking through a farmer's field. You stick to the footpath. But that doesn't make it right. Yeah, it's same on an allotment. You stick to the footpath. Country code, wasn't it? I can't remember the rules now. Scott says, I love it, parkin. Parkin is a kind of gingerbread made with oats and traditionally eaten in Yorkshire on bonfire night. I have definitely done a recipe, or I need to. You might have done a recipe on that, actually. That does ring a bell. Digwell, P.S. Just editing a habanero chili sauce. Phew. Yeah. Is it a good one, though? Is it a good one? Is it a good habanero? I'm sure it is, knowing you. I'm sure it is a good chili sauce. But I've got these habaneros. I spoke about them last week. I'm really pleased with them, as well as my cayenne chilies that I'm going to be dehydrating once I take the seeds out and turn it into our own cayenne chili powder. I've got to get paprika seeds next year because I want to grow the paprika and turn that into our own paprika as well. I love it. I love it when things like this happen. Digwell says, many sites do not post finite rules for access. See, I still think it's just polite that you don't walk on somebody's allotment. What if you walk and on my allotment, I obviously have quite distinct grass paths. But some people, they will turn their entire allotment into bare soil, and they will sow seeds in that bare soil and have it growing. They know what they're doing on their allotment. And if somebody comes along and walks across that bare soil thinking there's nothing growing in it, but there's actually seeds or something growing in it, that's where there's problems as well. I just think it's rude to walk on somebody's allotment. But is that just me? Is that just me being fussy? Turbo Stream says, some people are just, as I found out. Apparently I attacked his dog, but he is getting a visit from the police for his dog to be checked. Was going to ask if there's any update on that, actually, Turbo Stream, but guess not. I used to buy a beer called Parkin years ago. I've never heard of Parkin as a beer, but that's not surprising because I don't really drink. Although, something I've been looking more into, I think we've moved away from overwintering now. I want my garden to look like a show garden. That's kind of what I'm moving myself onto. I'm a big fan of show gardens, but I've been trying to find inspiration of how I want my garden to look. Where do you search for inspiration when it comes to creating a garden? Where are you looking for inspiration when it comes to creating a garden. I've been trawling the internet, looking at YouTube videos looking for inspiration. Obviously, I'm sticking with the edible side, but I've been trawling for the internet, looking for inspiration, YouTube videos, Instagram, even visiting some gardens in some places. I just can't seem to find the right place to really inspire me. So where do you look? Where do you look? Scott says homemade paprika would be cool. Would be cool to smoke the chilies first to make smoked paprika. Absolutely. That's exactly what I want to do. I've got my little smoker, the cold smoker. I haven't used. Got to smoke some cheese soon. Actually, haven't used that for a while. Mind you, the price of cheese these days is so expensive. It's not easy to do. Chili Kate says Chili Phil has been pureeing and freezing the lemon AJ chilies. We still have 7 more varieties to do something with. Yeah, definitely looking for lots of chili recipes at the moment. Things we can do our chilies. I've got to say it's been a good year for chilies, aubergines, or for me anyway, tomatoes this year. I mean, I'm still harvesting chilies and aubergines, tomatoes, sweet peppers at the moment. So really, really, really good year. Really good year. Excuse me, sorry. I don't know what's been like for you, but I've had a really good year for all those vegetables. Toby Stream, the only update is that he accused me of lying and attacking his dog. The police emailed him and he denied receiving it. So they are going to see him in November to assess his dog. Absolutely. Stuart says Lucy Chamberlain did a great show garden a couple of years ago. It's worth a look. Yes, that was at Audley End House. I saw it. It was brilliant. Yeah, it was brilliant. It was brilliant. That is a good source of inspiration, actually. I mean, Lucy Chamberlain is one of my favourite gardeners anyway, because she talks a lot of sense while being very experienced and very knowledgeable. Chili Gates says, I've had much success growing. I've not had much success growing paprika peppers. I'm going to have to get some. I'm going to have to get some paprika seeds. I saw some for sale. Going to have to get them. Toby Stream says, I don't like chilies, but definitely not growing them at all. You're missing out. I like chilies. I do like chilies. Margaret is there. Parkin is a traditional ginger cake from Yorkshire, flavoured with some syrupy molasses, oatmeal and spices. Bake it for bonfire night or an afternoon tea treat. It really is delicious. Hashtag cook along. Needs to be hashtag cook along all in one word for it to come up. Hashtag cook along Parkin. Sorry, Margaret. Need to do that again. Ginny says, inspiration for me is from books, magazines, Instagram, YouTube, Pinterest, and garden visits and open days. I love show gardens and always come away with ideas. Yeah, I'm the same. I love going to show gardens anyway. I love visiting gardens. I just love gardening, to be honest. I'm reading a book at the moment about the Dig for Victory campaign, which is rather interesting. I'm trying to see if I've got a thing I had here. Can't see it at the moment. A really good book, actually. Really enjoyed it. I'm going to have to bring Book of the Month back on the podcast because I haven't done that for a while. Turbo Stream says, I tried sweet peppers and got one solitary, tiny, miserable fruit off it. When did you start your peppers? The thing is with chili peppers and sweet peppers and aubergines, they do need a long growing period. And if you're sowing them in May, they're not really going to get that long growing period that they need. I tend to start mine November, December. Aubergines will probably be in January. And I do spread it out. But if you're any later than I would say March, then I don't think they get a long enough period to really grow big and strong to produce the flowers that they need and produce the plants that they need. This year's been exceptionally good for them, I have to admit, but I find they do need, especially the hot chilies, they need a really long growing season. Scott says, I would look back in history for inspiration for a show garden. Old traditional cottage gardens, mixed space for cut flowers and edibles. Indeed. Rob says, good evening all, still in the pub. This late. This late. Parking and cheese, win-win. There we go. Hashtag cook along. I like the idea of parking. Keys, ginger parking. Hashtag cook along. So it all depends if it comes up. It all depends if it comes up. What have we got? I sowed in January, I think, but I'm not sure. I got bored of looking after it, I think. Sweet peppers, and just like chili as well. They can be, as I said, they do need a long growing season. They are quite finicky. They do need a lot of warmth. They do need a lot of sun. And they do need quite a bit of feeding to really produce the best. Good compost, good feeding, good weather. Last year was pretty poor for those, in all honesty, but this year has more than made up for it. Scott says, hashtag cook along parking. You need to separate the cook along and the parking. I changed my mind as it's lovely. It's best made ahead of time. It gets better as it sits for a few days after cooking. Well, you never know. You never know. It all depends what comes up when we do the draw. Kate says, my chilies are doing great. I'm not a huge fan of too much heat, though. I'm going to try and make fire cider good for the immunity, apparently. Yeah, fire cider. I've been watching people who are making their own vinegars and fire cider this week as well. And I'm going to try that myself. But again, another one. Hydroponics, this thing here I have here. I've been growing this tomato since January this year. We had a few tomatoes. I can't say it's done brilliantly, but I'm gonna get some. I'm gonna do a bit of a video next week of getting some other seeds going in those. I think because I think we can get more out of it. Tigwell says, if you want to grow paprika, make sure you buy real paprika, Capsicum annuum for the Koloskia, and not the seeds pounded by seed companies. Red sweet peppers are not paprika. Yes, I know. That has annoyed me when I've been researching and looking into it. They're trying to pass it off as paprika when it's not. That has annoyed me. That's not a rant, though. Turbo Stream says, I hate anything hot and spicy, and black pepper is too hot. Always have done. See, I've got my tree out the front, my pepper. It's not black pepper, but it's a type of pepper that produces peppercorns, and I can't think what it's called. It will come to me when I'm not thinking of it. That is brilliant for producing our own peppers, our own peppercorn, because it would be nice. I'm trying to be as self-sufficient as I possibly can be. And being able to produce everything is just good. Chili also needs a lot of food. Yeah, chilies do need a lot of food. Peppers need a lot of food. Aubergines need a lot of food as well. Hashtag cook along. Whatever I said earlier, you got to remember it for if you win the draw. Always remember the draw comes out. Scott says, I just discovered fire cider and wanted to try it. Yeah, this is why I'm loving this at the moment. Like we're able to really try these different things, all these different foods, different recipes to try and get these things worked out. Yeah, I'm with you. Szechuan pepper, that's it. Szechuan pepper. That is exactly what I think. Szechuan pepper. You brought a plant at Gardeners World, I remember. That's the one. Yes, Szechuan pepper. Absolutely delicious and really, really productive. Conversation. I'm more a stout man than cider. I like cider, though. I do like cider. Hashtag mission, make fire cider. That sounds like a good one. Just remember that. Right, I think it is time to go, talking of missions, to this week's mission, which was set to me by Stuart Jackson. Got to work out whether I've got this right, though. Okay, so for this week's mission, you wanted me to make a hot bin composter.
And I have to admit, I've got a hot bin composter at home, which I've been trialing this year, and the results have been excellent. But I have struggled to actually make one this week. However, I have had one here that I have made previously. Here's one I've made earlier, if you like, to quote Blue Peter. Now, essentially, a hot bin is just simply an insulated box. It's something that can be easily replicated with polystyrene, even an old cool box, anything like that. All it is that you get the materials right, the carbon and nitrogen mix just right, that it heats up, it traps in that heat, and it makes some good compost. And because of that, I have used some old fridge doors to make this compost bin right here. Now, these are obviously not your standard type of fridge doors, not what you have at home. These are ones that I used to have to replace when I was on the road. And they are just an insulated door. I've just screwed them together to make the rectangle, and I'll place some more on top to trap in that heat as well. And then I'm just filling it up with a mix of greens and browns, nitrogen and carbon in equal amounts. It heats up, and because that heat is trapped in, it will work. So, whether that's mission failed or mission accomplished, you let me know in the comments. But hopefully I've given you a few ideas if you do want to make one of your own, of some simple ways to make your own. Personally, simple way, and I've just thought of this while talking to you, is a simple cool box. Get an old cool box, car boot sale or somewhere like that. It'd be quite small, but just fill that up with green and browns, and there you go, you've got a hot bin composter ready to go. Other than that, it's just insulated materials. Mission accomplished, mission failed, let me know in the comments, and back to the studio.
Indeed, is that mission accomplished or mission failed? I already had that one on the allotment, just using old fridge doors as an insulated material to hold in that heat. Now, my hot bin, it is basically an insulated box. It does have certain things in place that allow a bit of air to travel up through, things like that. But it is essentially there just to trap in all that heat. But the important thing is to be good at producing compost, to make the correct way of making compost, which is your green materials, nice and chopped up, your grass clippings, your kitchen waste, your brown materials in equal quantities, green and browns, brown materials, wood, shredded paper, that sort of thing. And that, mix it all together quite regularly. It produces this heat, as we were talking about earlier, and it warms up, and it produces compost quite quickly. So it was quite simple to do, just insulated polystyrene box, maybe a few holes for ventilation. But what do you think? Is that mission failed or mission accomplished? Digwell says, is Szechuan pepper a pepper? It's peppercorn, a type of peppercorn. Not quite black pepper. I think it tastes better though. And best of all, I can produce it here in my garden. That's what I really want to do. Stuart says we could be watching Blue Peter. Not with their garden, but that's another story. Chili Phil says that's an interesting debate, Digwell. And Turbo Stream says it's a pickled pepper that Peter pickled, Digwell. Scott's off. Have a good week, everyone. Good show as always. I'm making the whole show next week. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up, a like, and a subscribe on your way out, Scott. I'm sure you already subscribed, but anybody else, don't forget to like, subscribe. Excuse me, subscribe and notifications and all that jazz. Tabby Stream says that pose on the fridge is pure William Woolard. Who's William Woolard? Who's William Woolard? Let me know who that is. Chili Cake Maker, get off my carrots. And I'm liking these ideas tonight. Please remember some of these ideas. If you don't win the draw tonight, there's always next week. And I love it when you get creative with these things, because I really want to be a bit more creative, have a bit more fun with it. And I think that's something we've been lacking lately. I don't mean us lacking, but I just think we need more fun in our life. We need more fun in our life, and that's what these missions can do. And you get the chance to challenge me to anything. Digwell says, need to see the compost to say if it is a win or not. Fair point. Fair point. That's going to take a while. But I will come back to that. I'll have to make a reminder to show you the compost when it is rotted down. Stuart says, mission accomplished. I think you were asking that last week as a mission because you wanted ideas for how you're going to do it at school, if I remember correctly. Has that given you a few ideas? Back in a bit, says Robert. I meant the one that you made earlier. What is that? Yeah. The one I made earlier was I think that worked. Toby said, William Willard was a Top Gear presenter in the 1970s and used to sit on a car bonnets just like you did. Okay, I did not know that. I've never heard of him, so I've learned something there as well. Digler says, a lot of these comments are wasted on someone who does not watch TV or YouTube. That's me, isn't it? I'm an audio person. What can I say? I am an audio person. I do want to watch more YouTube though. I really do want to watch more YouTube. I'm going to make it my rule. I'm going to watch more YouTube more regularly. I'm going to make that a thing. Right. So, as always, towards the end of each show, we will go through the photos in just a moment before we do the draw. But one thing I want to go through, or one thing that we've recently been doing, is what has made you happy this week in the vegetable garden world, of course. For me, it was Friday. Now, Thursday, we had during the week, we had some pretty miserable weather. But Friday, I went out into the kitchen garden. I was expecting it to be cold. I had my fleece on, I had my hat on, I had my gloves on, and I'm working out in the garden, doing the things. And I sort of realised I've got this huge smile on my face. The sun was shining, although it was still chilly. The sun was shining. I was getting warm, and I just felt so good being out in the garden. The air was fresh. There was plenty of fragrance in the air. It was just lovely being out in the garden and enjoying being out in the garden. Yes, I was working. I was mulching. I was weeding. I was sowing seeds. I was tidying. I was cutting grass. I was doing all the everyday things. I harvested a huge bucket full of food. I just enjoyed being in the garden. It was great. It was absolutely great. And that has just made me really happy, just being out in the garden. What has made you happy this week? I cannot put my finger on quite what it was, but you can tell I've just really enjoyed being out in the garden. Digler says, I would check my audience figures to see if you watch any videos. It goes up by one view. You never know. You never know. I don't know. I just struggle with watching things. Even when we put a film on, I'm not interested. I lose interest. But that's me. Put podcast on, and I listen. I do miss listening to podcasts on the road, though. Chili Kate says, my first parsnip, and having the whole family on the allotment this afternoon has made Chili Kate happy. Absolutely. Absolutely. First parsnip. The first harvest of the parsnip. I mean, it's the first of everything, isn't it? The first strawberries, the first tomatoes, they always taste the best. And of course, having your whole family, obviously my whole family is quite small, it's just me, Amanda and the dog. They're all on the allotment, something's wrong, but it's nice when everyone's on the allotment. Toby Sue says, I unblocked my kitchen sink and saw a big squash fruit on the shed bench. So those made me happy this week. Good enough. Good enough. These are all the things that we need that make us happy, isn't it? Just enjoying that little wins. Stuart says, my joy moment this week was having my wife joining me in the garden, helping me with my veg patch. There you go. There you go. This is great. This is really positive to hear what has made everybody happy and what has made it all worthwhile. We've got to do more of this. We've got to hear more of this. Toby Swim says, also bled my hydraulic brakes on my e-bike this week too. That made him happy. Jenny says, I've been really happy to see so many insects and pollinators starting to hibernate in my garden. Bumblebees burrowing, ladybirds tucking themselves in, etc. Absolutely fantastic. Digwell returns the favour and stops watching the Veg Grower podcast videos. Fair enough. No, I need the views. I need the views as well. The more views, the better. Dare I say it? I've got to do a tour video soon, but I've had a few requests of a tour of the allotment, which I've just got to shoot. I just haven't had the time. I'm falling into this trap with videos that I just don't find the time to shoot and edit the videos. Podcasts and live shows take up enough of my time, and I'm happy doing those. Turbo Stream, the squash is now in my garage to eat later on in the winter. Yeah. Anything else? Has anything else made anybody else happy? There's more of you out there. We'd love to hear what has made you happy on the allotment, on the vegetable garden, on the kitchen garden, anywhere like that, or what has made you happy this week. It could be anything. Could be anything, as we've already expressed. And I want to, as I said, each week we're trying to do this, trying to bring a bit of joy, a bit of fun into it. And I think if you are struggling to think during the week when you're on the kitchen garden, if you are at the moment are struggling to think of what has made you happy when you are in the allotment or in the kitchen garden, I want you to sort of say to yourself, and you find yourself happy, you find yourself smiling, make a note of that. Think to yourself, Richard is going to want to know about this. So, I mean, there's more of you out there than has said. Digwell, for example, what has made you happy this week? Who else have we? I know Scott's gone. So, Anna, what has made you happy this week? Rob, what has made you happy this week? I'm going to name you until I get some answers. Scott has gone. Chili Phil, what has made you happy this week? Nathan, what has made you happy this week? I wanted to hear from all of you. I want to hear from Ballycillian. I want to hear from you as well. In fact, there he is. I agree with Richard. Although it was raining today, I wore my work wet gear and completed a few jobs on the allotment. It's nice, isn't it? It is nice when you can just get on and do things. Even though the weather's cold, it is just nice. And as I said, I don't know about you, Ballycillian, but when I was working on Friday, I just had this huge smile on my face. It just makes it all the worthwhile. I'm going to leave that. No, sorry, I'm not going to leave that. I'm going to wait and see. I want to hear more things that have made you happy this week. But in the meantime, let's have a look at your photos while you think of that. We've only got a short amount of photos again this week, but we would like more. So first of all, this is from TurboStream. I'm going to have to move this over here. From TurboStream, and he has shown us that his new grass paths are starting to bed in nicely and starting to look great. The chilies had the mini chili happening today. The chili cake has already mentioned this. Interesting fact: this mini chili is the groundskeeper for Southampton Football Club as well. So he was cutting the grass and trying to make stripes. I'm not a football fan, but hey, it's not every day you get a groundskeeper cutting your allotment grass. So good stuff. Kate has a challenge for you. Do you think you can do it? It's a 3-day challenge. No buying plants on the 3 days, February 29th, 30th, or 31st. I think I can do that. Do you think you can? Digwell is trying to wind me up, talking about his local garden centre, which is having its Christmas opening at the end of October. Free mince pie, though, and mulled wine as you shop. But he makes up for it with this photo of what he has harvested this week. Got to say, good lot of vegetables. Got carrots, squash, chilies, leek, tomatoes. Absolutely fantastic. And did that make you happy? Did that make you smile? Please do keep sharing your photos. You can post them in our Facebook group. You can send to me via social media or email me, richard@theveggrowerpodcast.co.uk. That's richard@theveggrowerpodcast.co.uk. Right. What have we got over on Instagram? Loads of people have joined. We have got Libs Allotment, Andy T723, Annie B Photos, and Plot 52 all joined in that time. Welcome along. Lovely to see you. What has made you happy in the allotment or in the kitchen garden this week? Chili Phil says, I have harvested some chilies today. Can't believe they're still coming and the clocks have just gone back. It's absolutely amazing just how much food we are still harvesting this year. We really have had it good this year in terms of late, and it's really coming to its own at the moment. Stuart says, hashtag make a bird bath table help with the pests. Needs to be hashtag mission. Hashtag mission. But I think we've done the bird bath in the past. But yeah. Jenny says, I think we should have Richard and Digwell YouTube live with Q&A. That would be great. Maybe a Christmas special. We want to see those Christmas Santa hats on. I'm sure we could. I'll have a chat with Digwell. We might be able to do that for January, perhaps, when it's a little bit quiet. I'll have a chat with Digwell about that. I think we could do something. Bonnie has joined. Bonnie in Brighton. Hello, Richard. Waving from Hove. Waving from Littlehampton. Hope you are well. How's the allotment going? I see you're working very hard. Nathan says still harvesting chilies and sweet peppers has made him happy. Toby Stream says Digwell made me smile this week with his flying garlic and cauliflower. What happened there? What happened there? Tell me more. Tell me more. I'm experimenting with growing saffron crocuses, says Bonnie in Brighton. So I haven't grown it for a few years now, but I used to grow saffron. But the bulbs, you plant those and they produce saffron around this time of year normally. It's not unknown because Croydon, Saffron Walden, and places like that, it's where saffron used to be grown in this country. So they definitely will grow in this country. Trouble is, you need a lot of them for it to be worthwhile. You need a large area to grow saffron. We used to grow them every year and get about enough to make one paella. But don't let that put you off. Give it a go. Give it a go. You can get the bulbs from certain suppliers if you know. I'm trying to think of who I got mine from. There we go. Jenny says, I've put it on the notes. Thank you very, very much. Right. So what do I want to talk about next week? That seems like we're getting near to the end. Before I do the... where are we? What we want to do next week is, before I bring up the drawers, so next week I had a good subject and I can't think what it was going to be. Oh, I'm going to ask a question. Why do you think more people are not growing their own food? That's a question I want to ask last week, if that's okay with you. Why do you think more people aren't growing their own food? Don't answer just yet. Think about it for the week. But next week, that is going to be the question. Stuart says, I think Digwell goes for the same garden centre as me, as they have moved everything around. Bloody Christmas. Yeah. I'm not a fan of it. As you know, I'm not a fan of it because of various reasons. But he says, also experimenting with the wasabi and ginger. Any advice, please? Wasabi, you get the right variety. It doesn't need to be in water, but it does need a lot of moisture. Ginger, I grow like a houseplant. You can buy it from stuff you buy from a supermarket if you get the right piece. But I grow ginger as a houseplant. It's dying back at the moment. We'll probably harvest it December, January time. We'll make some more for next year, but it can definitely be done. Just treat it like a houseplant. Wasabi is slightly harder. Does need a lot of moisture. A lot of moisture. Farmer Gracie sells saffron crocuses. That's who I was thinking of, actually. But yeah, tasty, very, very tasty. Again, as you know, trying to be self-sufficient, so we do need to do that. Right, let's go to the draw and let's see, which one do you think we should do first? We'll do this one. Let's do the mission. So we've got 3 entries for hashtag mission. So let's see who wins this and what next week's mission will be. You may have to remind me what it is because I cannot necessarily remember. I can't believe it. Chili Phil has won the cook-along 3 weeks running, and this week it is the mission. If I remember correctly, it's to make fire cider as well. But let me know if that is correct in the comments. It sounds about right, isn't it? Does sound about right. Let's get rid of that. And then, so Chili Phil, what was your mission? Remind us. And while you do that, we will now go to the cook along screen as well. And we will see, we've got 6 entries for the cook along. What recipe are we going to be cooking next week? Next week. Who's going to win? Who's going to win? You can see all the names going off the screen. I don't believe it. I'm going to do that again. I'm sorry. I'm going to do that again. No offense, Chili Phil. I can't remember what you suggested, but I'm going to do that again because you've had it 3 weeks running, and I just don't think that's. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do it again. If you don't mind, I know that's not necessarily right, but we're going to do that. Digwell, what was your mission? What was your mission? I can't remember. I can't believe that. I cannot believe that Chili Phil came up twice. That's just not on. Just not on. Anyway, the mission is to make fire cider next week, which is something quite tasty. Where were we with the comments? Jenny says, I dropped my ginger plant, gutted, it broke up. You can still plant those little bits of ginger and it probably will regrow. That's often what I do is I actually take the ginger, when I harvest it, I break pieces off, I keep the bigger bits and then just replant the smaller bits, leave it in the soil, and come the spring it starts re-sprouting. Same with my turmeric. I do exactly the same thing with. But they do stay indoors all year round. Chili Phil says, yes, that's correct. Fire cider. What can I say? Born lucky. Scott is back. Scott is back. Welcome back again. I hope your dad taxi duties have gone down well. Chili Phil says, you can't treat. I'm just a natural winner. Yeah. What's on the lotto numbers, Chili Phil? Yeah, what are the lottery numbers if you're that lucky? It's cold out tonight. It does feel cold. Anyway, Digwell, what was your mission? Because I can't remember. I can't remember what Chili Phil's mission was, but no, cook along, sorry. So we've scrapped his cook along because that's just not right. That's just not right. Well, I cannot believe it. Anyway, let us know quickly, unless Jenny has made a note of it because I can't remember. But we are coming up to 7:30. It is time, of course, to start wrapping up. I think it's been another good discussion this week. We've discussed what are we overwintering this year? What plants are we going to be growing throughout the winter in order for a wide variety of reasons? We've touched on what makes us happy this week. We've touched on quite a few subjects. Some of it has completely gone out of my mind because of everything that's gone on. But a lot of things have gone wrong at the same time, but that's always the fun of it. Bonnie says, I'm not bothering with Xmas potatoes. Again, you really need a greenhouse for it to be worthwhile when it comes to Christmas potatoes, to be honest. I like my Christmas potatoes to be roast potatoes. I don't go in for new potatoes. Roast potatoes. Turbo Stream says it was fire cider. Scott, hashtag chili field, go buy a lottery ticket. Oh, yeah. But no, fire cider was the mission. What was Digwell's? He's still there. He's probably editing a video. What was his cook along? Was it the parking? I don't think it was. No, it's parsnip soup, wasn't it? I can't remember. I'm trying to hold on until we see him before I close up. So he's probably going to, now I've said that, he's probably going to hold on right as long as he can. Either that or he's disappeared. Come on, Digwell. Don't leave me hanging. Jenny says soup, I think. I think it was as well. I'm sure it was parsnip soup. Parsnip soup, yes. But yes, I planted them in beds before I got my greenhouse. Yeah, that's the thing. Saying that, recently potatoes have started resprouting. So yeah. Anyway, it is time now to get out of here. It's 7:30. It's time to pack up for the weekend and think about what we're going to be doing next weekend. We will be back again next Sunday at 6 p.m. where we're going to be making parsnip soup. We're going to be making fire cider, and we are also going to be talking about why are more people growing their own food. That's going to be the conversation for next week. There'll be more as we go as well. But until next Sunday at 6, all the best. Take care. See you then.